and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. We'll get to that, we'll definitely all get to that. But before we get to that, let's get right into the news. First, we're going to be covering two stories related to Palestine, and the first one is that Hamas has announced that it will dissolve the government in Gaza as US-brokered ceasefire plan stalls. Let's read a little bit more into it. So Hamas announced on Monday that it will dissolve its government in Gaza, a move that experts say puts pressure on Israel as progress from the US-brokered peace plan has stalled. The head of Hamas's government media office said the militant group is ready to turn over governance to the Palestinian Technocratic Committee that's meant to lead the enclave under the agreement. Hamas's statement made no mention of disarmament, one of the key requirements under the second phase of the ceasefire deal, which the group has so far refused. The announcement changes little on the ground, where Hamas and its security forces maintain firm control of the portion of Gaza not occupied by the Israeli military, but the symbolic moves puts the focus on the ceasefire agreement back on Israel, as President Donald Trump has pressured President Benjamin Netanyahu to move forward with elements of the plan. That includes the establishment of pilot areas in Gaza where Palestinians can live under the Technocratic Committee. And yes, this is a pretty big step. And according to Benjamin Netanyahu, basically, he's trying to make the claim that he can't do anything until Hamas disarms itself, but I think, this thing was stated in a previous episode where it's like, I think this was like stated in a way past episode, because it's just like, they really have no reason to. They need to see Israel do anything to concede on their ground. They've already conceded their ground by giving away power. And as this whole story keeps saying, now the ball is in Israel's court. Okay, they've thrown the ball in their court. Now it's time for Israel to throw the ball back. And this is like a very interesting, because like, if you know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys know the conflict between the PLO and Hamas has been a divide that has almost been as big as the divide between like Palestine broadly and Israel. A lot of the conflict from the Palestinian, like for the fact that Palestine has not really been able to form like a coherent movement against Israel necessarily, is because of the massive infighting between Fatah and Hamas. And, just the broad political drama conflict between all of the parties within the movements, like within like the area. But due to the fact that there's like a massive genocide and occupation, their broad political divides can't really just be political divides. They inevitably end up into bigger dramas. And by dramas, of course, we mean like, fighting, like actual like fighting with each other. And again, like this is a pretty big deal, at least according, again, in my eyes. I don't know if this is like a thing that's been like happened in the past, because like, and we'll get to why I'm prefacing it with that because of the next story. And it's the fact that I don't know if this is technically related, but I'm pretty sure these are related stories. And this is a big one. I would assume due to the fact that Hamas has basically relinquished control over the Gaza Strip, and like due to that fact, the Palestinian Authority, led by Mahmoud Abbas, has announced that the Palestinian Authority has set a date for their first elections since 2006. The elections are slated to be held on November 28th of this year. Now, this is big if they're actually going to go through with it, because this is not the first time that Abbas has announced elections that have not really gone through, which I guess is seen as one of the main reasons why people are like, calling corruption within the PLO and the Palestinian Authority. It's because this happens. Like Mahmoud Abbas has called elections. Like, I mean, the Wikipedia page for the most recent Palestinian elections used to just say next Palestinian presidential elections. And they talked about how there was like a election scheduled in May of 2021, but then he indefinitely postponed it in April of 2021 because of, again, the massive divides between Hamas and Fatah. And especially because, that's just, the Wikipedia page also shows some presidential polls that were conducted during, like, up to 2024, and, actually, this is weirder, because I'm looking at the polls prior to the postponement of the elections. Fatah was very easily winning, but then it was only after they postponed the elections that the results started not going in Fatah's favor. And there is one major asterisk in this election, because this is an election for the parliamentary positions, like the members of parliament. But this is not an election for the president, which is the position that Abbas holds. And ultimately, I think this is a good idea. Ultimately, yes, I want the people of Palestine to be able to democratically elect their leaders, whoever they be. I mean, just truly whoever they be. Because at the end of the day, Palestinians need to have that's one of the main problems that has always been with Palestine. Like, with every single element of Palestine and Palestinian issues, there's always been a massive divide on how to fully, truly have a, united front. Like, since currently Palestine is divided between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, just literally two completely separate areas that have different elements of the culture and, at this point, we truly have, developed, somewhat different, I would assume, cultures and, not necessarily, fully, of course, not fully, unique cultures, but, you get what I'm saying. There are two groups, two places that, especially with Israel, literally getting to control who can and can't leave these areas, that naturally there's going to be some divide over how the West Bank and the Gaza Strip plays out. And that's one of the main things that has always been the point now. Because, the West Bank has been, of course, primarily controlled by Fatah, and Gaza Strip has primarily been controlled by Hamas. These divides have just naturally, whether they be naturally happened or fully, created by Israel and, the conditions of the area, clearly it's to make it so that these two areas cannot fully, truly, unite together under one major goal. But hopefully with these elections, the people of Palestine will have the ability to elect new, I'm not even really sure how the Palestinian government really has been able to truly work, considering there have not been elections for a while. I mean, have they literally just been going by, are these just literally all the same people who got elected in 2006? Or, I mean, I would assume that can't always be the case. I mean, so clearly there had to be some, appointments here and there, but, yeah, I guess it does also, again, show why the people of Palestine kind of felt that non-electoral routes were really the route they could, because again, they've never been able to get a democratic choice for 20 years. Again, I am very, I remember I read a news story a while ago where it was Palestine was holding their first mayoral elections for a couple months. I don't know, not a couple months ago, but they were organizing, they announced, they made an announcement a couple months ago where it was they were organizing their first mayoral elections, and I literally was just we take for granted the ability to have a boring, normal-ass election. We take for granted the fact that there's just, random, boring, municipal elections that happen. But people of Palestine, they don't get that luxury. They don't get the luxury of just being a boring municipal election about, some random politics that nobody fucking cares about. They don't get to have that. Palestinian children are literally just, are playing in, fucking dirt. And, again, solidarity to all the people in Palestine. I hope that these elections go through and that you are able to elect people who are able to fully fix the issues that are currently facing your nation. And if things go well, maybe there'll be a video on those Palestinian elections in the coming months. Hopefully. Don't screw us out of this, Abbas or Netanyahu. Whoever of the two will screw out this issue more. But anyway, speaking of elections, there is an election going on in the UK right now. Well, not right now, but it is going to be coming up pretty soon. And it is a by-election in the constituency of Clacton. And the reason why this is happening is because their incumbent MP is Nigel Farage, the former leader of UKIP, and then the basically figurehead that has led the British far right for years, essentially. Now here is first of all, why is this election happening? Well, it's simply because people the UK government has started looking into Nigel Farage's financial interests, because as it turns out, there have been a couple of rich people who have been giving Nigel Farage money, and the specific investigations were looking into a £5 million payment from Christopher Harborne, gifts from a guy called George Cottrell, declaration of several properties, and allegations of lobbying by the Bank of England in regards to cryptocurrency. Basically, like, corruption charges. Like, it's basically, like, just basic, like, the most basic, obvious corruption charges that you could possibly see. And this is literally the truth of the matter. Like, they were investigating him, but Nigel Farage, if he resigned as MP, they would stop the investigation. Like, it's the same thing with Matt Gaetz when he was sex trafficking that teenager. Like the House was investigating that, and when he resigned, then the investigation would end. And Nigel Farage basically just decided, like, you know, he was going to resign, and then immediately in the by-election that would ensue, he would run in that by-election. And it was basically going to, and his plan was basically that he was just going to try and make this into a big spectacle, because basically he's like, oh, the lamestream media and, like, the establishment is trying to silence me, and I will stand forth on this issue. And it's the thing, it's weird, because this isn't the first time this has happened necessarily. Like, there have been multiple MPs that have resigned from, technically, I think technically you're not allowed to technically resign. There's, like, a weird process that you have to go through to resign, quote unquote. But basically, there have been a couple of MPs that have gone through situations where it's like, they've resigned and then immediately ran in the by-elections after the fact. But the thing is, like, 3 of them did it for, like, the most altruistic reasons that a lot of people in the West have actually, like, a lot of people in the United States have complained about, where it's like, like, they switched parties and then they resigned, specifically because they wanted to have, like, the people vote on them in their new party. And most of the time in the UK, when there's party switches, they don't even have to do that, because usually by the time that they party switch, there's usually, like, a call for a general election in the first place. Like, there's usually an immediate general election after the fact, but, like, regardless, that's beside the point. But the point is, that was what Nigel Farage wanted to do. Nigel Farage was like, I'm going to, like, run in this election, you know, he's gonna, like, and this is basically, like, a very hard right district. I mean, literally one of the people, like, this district actually also previously had a by-election, again, like, with like, one of their previous MPs was a conservative MP that went to UKIP, and UKIP is absolutely insane now, but the point is, like, you can clearly tell that there is a far-right bend within this specific constituency. So he was basically just planning on just, you know, having all these candidates run against him. You know, he was gonna, like, you know, like, make this big spiel, like, again, like, oh, the establishment is trying to stop me. You know, all these parties are going to, like, whatever. They're all going to be evil. Blah 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 blah. But then this is the thing that, like, made this election very big. This is the thing that made people a lot of this really interesting, because most of the MPs didn't even want to even entertain Farage's election. Like, and this just shows, again, how blatantly corrupt everything is. It's like UKIP, not UKIP, Reform UK actually wanted to pay for this election themselves, but it didn't work, because, like, you can't do that. It's not allowed. But what ended up happening is that all of the mainstream political parties, Labour, Conservatives, Greens, the Liberal Democrats, and they're apparently mainstream now, Restore Britain, all announced that they had no intentions of filing any candidates in this election. And for a decent period of time, the only candidates that did file in this election was a candidate by the name of Count Binface. Now, you might not know who Count Binface is, but you may know of the previous endeavor, Lord Buckethead. For those who don't know the full ins and outs, there was a guy called Lord Buckethead. He was a character from a, like, Star Wars ripoff movie all the way back in 1984. But then, in order to promote the movie, the guy who owned the video distributor of the movie, he decided to, like, a guy called Mike Lee, now a relation to the United States Senator, he decided to promote the movie. He was going to dress up as Lord Buckethead in the 1987 election and then contest against Margaret Thatcher. And then for some reason he also decided to do this joke again by running against John Major in 1992. But then in 2017, a man by the name of Jonathan Harvey decided to, like, he heard of this joke, like, he watched the movie and then he looked it up and learned about this joke, so then he decided to do this joke again. Like, he just decided to bring back the Lord Buckethead character again, and stood against Theresa May in the 2017 election, which led to a little bit of a brief resurgence of Lord Buckethead. I think I even got followed by the official Lord Buckethead Twitter account. But basically, then in 2018, Jonathan Harvey, he got contacted by the original guy who made the character, not even Mike Lee, the guy who registered the character originally. He's the guy who owned the character. What's his name? It's on the Wikipedia page right here. Todd Durham. And Todd Durham said, bro, this is my character. And I would kindly request that you do not use my character anymore. Give me access to the Twitter account for the character and whatever. And then Jonathan Harvey just said, fine, whatever. It's like, I can't afford a legal battle, so here you go. So then he decided to Todd Durham decided to do another interesting, he decided to not necessarily close the character per se, but he decided to instead revive the character again. But this time he wanted to make the character a little bit more serious. It's a similar thing to the Vermin Supreme thing, where it's Vermin Supreme's jokes of being a political satirist are not meant to be they're meant to have some sort of actual small political commentary within them. And that was the thing. He brought back the character, and the character stood under the official Monster Raving Loony Party, which is the official crazy party, the crazy fringe party in the UK. And he ran against them and whatever. And continuing with the tradition, he ran against Boris Johnson in that election. But Harvey decided to create his own character, Count Binface, who was literally just a carbon copy of Lord Buckethead, but made intentionally, worse. Lord Buckethead is, he looks, Lord Buckethead is if you look at a picture of a Lord Buckethead, the character, you can tell he's a low-budget character, a parody of Darth Vader, but then Count Binface is supposed to be a low-budget image of Lord Buckethead, a rip-off of a rip-off. That's supposed to be the joke. And the rest of the UK's, politicians are just, they've, either openly or just tepidly effectively endorsed Count Binface for this election. Because they're just look, if this whole thing is a farce anyways, so might as well just accept it. Count Binface is literally just supposed to be, the joke of him in this race is essentially, this race is a farce. And as such, why not elect me? And the Reform UK people are, showing they're just absolutely stupid or something? Because they're, their big thing is that, they're, unmasking Count Binface in this election. I'm just seeing multiple tweets where it's exposing the truth of Count Binface, and it's none of this was a secret, dude. Absolutely none of these things were secrets. I knew about all this information when it happened, and the only other people that have actually announced these races are mostly again small fringe candidates. The Monster Raving Loony Party is apparently going to nominate candidates, and the only other people that are announcing are far right people. There's a British fascist party has announced someone running for this bid, and it's just again this election is just far right and a farce. So it's just might as well just accept the farce and move forward. Plus, you know me, I love me some copyright infringement, so I fully and enthusiastically endorse Count Binface for the British election coming up in Clacton. Count Binface, you gotta let me know. Did you follow the E Pluribus Unum account when you were in the Lord Buckethead phase, or was that the guy afterwards? Cause somebody followed, because I am officially followed by the Lord Buckethead page. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's move on to the next news story. It's a sad news story, and it's just, it's a sad story that we're kind of expecting at this point. A Mexican man was fatally shot by ICE. And according to CNN, he was not even the target of who they were going after that day. So the man in question is a man by the name of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, who was evading arrest when agents tried to conduct a traffic stop. ICE said in a previous statement, describing it as a target enforcement operation, the agency did not specify whether or not he was the target. Though I guess they must have said something afterwards. Texas authorities had previously notified the ICE about two individuals, neither of whom were Salgado Araujo, traveling in a white van believed to be in the United States without legal status, according to the source, prompting them to survey the vehicle. The agents then conducted surveillance on the target's address, and weeks prior to the incident, on July 7th, officers were almost at a target's address when they observed a white van with an individual who resembled the target. Racism. ICE has made absolutely bullshit claims, which are untrue, because that's one of the things that people said was that he tried to ram their vehicles. Absolute lie. Bullshit. Full-on fabrication. I do not believe a single word that an ICE agent says. And I know that this isn't true because, one, ICE agents have refused to release body cam footage, they refuse to allow the family to even see this man's corpse, and there's literal footage of the man's van, and there is no incidents or any signs of any sort of ramming on the vehicle. See, normally when a vehicle rams into another vehicle, there is usually damage to the vehicle, right? There was no damage to his vehicle. I'm just saying. Doesn't add up. Story does not add up. Shock of all shocks, ICE agents are fucking lying pieces of shit. And I'm looking at it now. It says the officers involved in the incident had not yet been issued body-worn cameras, a DHS spokesperson told CNN. Convenient! Body cameras have been distributed to more than half of ICE's field agents, and the rest will be receiving them in the next 60 days. Citing government shutdowns for the... Oh, it's convenient! Convenient! They weren't wearing their camera. They just didn't get their cameras at the time period. Ah, that's so... Ooh, man, that's so... Yeah, that's so believable. Much like how I totally believe that the girls who get kidnapped and put into ICE facilities magically walk out pregnant. It's just magic. Those ICE facilities are just really, really interesting. They're able to give us a ton of, like, virgin births. It's just, wow, it's just so crazy how that happens all the time. You know, silly me would assume that maybe ICE agents are doing a little something shady behind the scenes, but nah, they would never do anything of the sort. It's not like we have literal video footage of Jonathan Ross being an actual piece of shit who absolutely lied under oath about being hit by a car that was not targeting him at all. Nah, ICE agents would never do anything bad whatsoever. If the next Democratic presidency, regardless of who it is, does not prosecute these ICE agents, it is just absolutely unfathomable. But granted, the US obviously has that precedent of being that fucking stupid, where we literally looked at the people who literally betrayed the nation, tore it in half to keep black people enslaved, and we punished none of them. And also, the time that a fucking pedophile tried to overthrow the fucking federal government, and he somehow managed to be able to walk back into the White House and take control of the government again. Man, I wonder how that's going. Oh yeah, next news story. The Trump administration has fired multiple members of an independent election group. The firings and resignation from the Election Assistance Commission come as President Trump has sought to impose control over how the ballots will be counted in the November midterms. The Trump administration has forced out the 3 remaining members of an independent bipartisan commission that supports states in administering their elections, the White House confirmed on Thursday. The move comes as President Trump seeks to cast doubt on the outcome of the upcoming midterms and impose control over how ballots are counted. Mr. Trump terminated, effective immediately, Thomas Hicks and Benjamin Hovland, 2 members selected by the Congressional Democrats to serve on the Election Assistance Committee, and accepted the resignation of Republican member Kristen McCormick. The board has no other remaining members, as its 4th commissioner resigned this spring. An unidentified White House official said in a statement that President Trump reserved the right to remove individuals who may not be totally aligned with the important task of securing America's elections and ensuring that every legal vote is counted. The White House official cast the dismissal as part of the federal government's strategy to work across agencies to safeguard elections from fraud and abuse. Translation, they are going to 100% try and rig this election. Like, guys, I just have to be completely honest, guys. It's just like, again, I just gotta say it, like, fuck Kamala Harris, and fuck everybody who didn't vote for Kamala Harris, because it's just like, this was like the most obvious situation. I literally predicted just point blank, this exact situation would happen. Guys, the guy who refused to leave when he lost an election, under no pretext should we have ever allowed that man to enter the White House again. Like, he has done everything within his power to try and try and try to take control of this election, I have absolutely zero faith that he's not going to do anything fucking worse. Just no. You guys can have like your, I mean, like, again, it's just like, guys, I just gotta be real. You have to accept the fact that there is a scenario where there will be no midterms, or that if a midterms happen, that there is something to actively try and prevent the midterms from prevent like the elections being sworn in. Like, something will happen. Maybe, hopefully, I'm being a little too cautious and a little too crazy. Hopefully, knock on wood, like, hopefully. But you have to accept the fact, like, we cannot trust this man. We cannot trust him. I trust Donald Trump as far as I can throw him, and I cannot pick up a man that fucking fat. Like, the best case scenario is that this just leads to, I mean, again, like, literally, best case scenario, this leads to basically nothing, and that this is just a negligible effect on an otherwise midterm battle, or that the Dems win so big in the midterms that it just doesn't matter. But like, we're having Democratic politicians openly say that they should not seat people like Daria Liza for like that. But it's just like, you're legitimizing the idea of not seating members of Congress that you don't agree with. It's just like, I can't wait to see how that fucking blows over with fucking like everyone else. Whatever. I mean, whatever. Let's just pretend that we live in a world where this is just like a small little drama that just happens in the election. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. But yeah. Now let's move on to the last news story, which ties into the main topic. And I mean, I think I could have just went full in on the main topic, but I guess it's worth putting this specifically as its own news story so that there is a little bit of a subsection to divulge it away from the main topic. Graham Platner. Graham fucking Platner. You were right. I have to say it, I guess. You guys were right. Like, the people who were not trustful of Graham Platner, you guys were right. I was wrong. I was wrong. I take the L. I take the L. Like, Graham Platner finally reached the one controversy that no one could defend him on. Well, yes, not nobody, but the one that removed him from most people's radar. It was found out that Graham Platner raped people, and to some, they were like, are you really that surprised? And I mean, I can't really say I am, really. Like, there was, I guess I should be upfront and explain my views on Graham Platner to an extent. Basically, I first heard about Graham Platner when he first announced his bid. And, I mean, he said the right words, Medicare for all, anti-Israel, he said the right words, populist, working class, Dem, blah, blah, blah. Didn't know if I should 100% trust him, but I had someone in my circle that said, like, no, Graham Platner's fine, I'm in the same area as Graham Platner. I've talked to Graham. I'm friends with Graham. We both work together on the SRA. And together, we've organized together and stuff. It's like, okay, I got that. I trust this person, so I could trust Graham. Good. There were elements of the controversies that obviously, some of them were, that's the thing. It's one of the main things that differentiated me from some other, I guess people of the Platner left. I could at least take in the actual valid criticisms with Graham Platner, but I also had valid, I guess not valid, but I had my explanations as to why certain things, one of the main things was the criticism about, one of the main criticisms of Graham Platner that actually stuck was the whole military thing, him being a member of the military, him working with Blackwater and stuff, him apparently serving on the Abu Ghraib, torture camps. That's a big one. And My explanation for that was that, like, not necessarily that, our soul, like, I mean, there's some people who go, like, who went a little further, like, our soldiers are ooh-woo little boys who were, like, I don't know, I guess, groomed into it. But I also did, like, understand, like, the U.S. military, I mean, because, like, this is like, I mean, again, these guys are, like, were the people who made the criticisms of, like, Graham Platner's military record fully are the only people whose criticisms on Graham Platner I took validly. Because they were the only ones who were actually willing to address the concern at its root. And it's one of the things that I also say this with, like, and afterwards, like, with this, it's like a lot of the people who are, like, shitting on Graham Platner now, it's like, a lot of you guys aren't ready to, like, have a full, real conversation with the U.S. military. You guys aren't ready for that. Because the U.S. military, they breed people like Graham Platner every day. That's the truth. For, like, people like Graham Platner are bred every day by the U.S. military. People who are worse than Graham Platner get bred by the U.S. military every day. And again, this is the thing. It's like again, like, Graham Platner, rapist. He's a rapist. Like that is seemingly the lowest of the low on human totem pole. But, like, again, U.S. military breeds worse people than Graham Platner every day. Like, Graham Platner walked out of the military still with still an obviously skewed left-wing perspective. That's one of the weird things that's, like, I guess there is, like, elements to that, and, like, we understand about this in U.S. history, where it's like the Democratic Party in the 1800s, they were the party of the common man, the people, but they also were able to rationalize their version of the people excluded, African Americans, excluded the indigenous people of the United States. Like, there's, like, people, like, especially white people can have some very strange rationalizations in their brain where it's like, oh, these people are subhuman, but these don't count, but we count. And, like, yeah, I engaged with all the criticisms and, like, the praise and criticism of Platner. And, I mean, I still ultimately saw value in what Graham Platner as a candidate could represent. I wasn't necessarily drawn into, like, cool aesthetics of the working class candidate, really. I didn't fucking care about that at all, really. I don't think I did. I don't recall if I did. I guess you could look at old episodes and see if that was a thing I did. But basically, Graham Platner, to me, just really was representative of more the ideas that he espoused. Like, like, not to, like, hype this up too much, but, like, some of his old, like, Reddit messages, like, some of them said that he was, like, a communist, or, like, he was a socialist or whatever. And I was like, in that aspect, that could be somewhat useful to allow for more of an explanation of, like, a more robust, like, broad issues of, like, the actual, like, policies, I guess. I mean, some of the criticisms of Graham Platner were, I think, valid. Very valid. Some were less valid, and we might get into that when we cover the main topic. But, again, I saw value in some of the things that Platner, like, espoused. Particularly his stances on Israel, and particularly his stance on, like, I guess, like, just some generic, like, other issues. And what his victory could really represent. Like, he wasn't, like, the candidate that I was, like, the most enthused about, even among the Senate candidates. I mean, like, the candidate that I actually really wanted to win absolutely overall was Abdul El-Sayed. I was like, if Abdul could win and Graham Platner could lose, I would choose that scenario in a heartbeat. And, fingers crossed we still get that scenario. But clearly, there's a lot more lessons to learn about Graham Platner specifically that we should really think. Again, in retrospect, there really should have, really, in retrospect, yeah, we probably should have been a bit more mindful. Again, like, if I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I'm pretty sure, but if I wasn't told about a person that I trusted, that they knew and trusted Graham Platner, then I'm pretty sure I could have been a bit more mindful of some of the things that he said. Like, I mean, maybe I would have been able to, maybe, like, I mean, again, we should have, I mean, I can't say we, because I know some of you in the audience are like, yo, lol, you, L, yeah, fair. Again, that's the big thing, L, we all take, I mean, not we all, but, like, the people on the Platner side, who are on the Platner side, takes L's. That's the big thing. And there are some lessons we should probably learn. You know, for one, I think this is a big one. I think truly at this point, we should really, this is going to be a bit of a big hot take from me. I mean, is it a big hot take? I don't know how big of a hot take it is. But at this point, I think it just has to be said. I think we're done with leftist vets. If there were leftist vets prior to this point who were cool. They can stay around. But I think at this point, in the future, no more leftist vets. No more leftist vets. Specifically in the candidate sphere, no more leftist vets. We're no more of those. Because you guys keep showing your asses. This isn't even the first time this election cycle that leftist vets have done things that have shown their asses. And two examples from North Carolina specifically are Anthony Aguilar and Brian McGinnis, who both did a similar shtick to Graham Platner, where it's we're vets who I guess feel ashamed about the bad things that we did, and now we're going to do good in our electoral bids. But they also had some different bona fides because they were running candidacies outside of the duopoly entirely, not just Dem entryism, but they also they were Green Party candidates. But also, they both also just immediately showed their asses again, because Anthony Aguilar immediately was oh, how dare you criticize the U.S. military? And Brian McGinnis wanted to be friends with neo-Nazis, and, well, yeah. They were a bit more obvious than fucking, I guess not even that, I guess. The ultimate L in this scenario is, of course, Graham Platner just to be upfront, if you were a Graham Platner supporter, at this point, it's you have to just be I don't no more. Should this be a screw up on the screw up list? I don't know. I try to keep the podcast screw ups different from the main series episode screw ups, but should this be one? I don't know. I'm gonna put it to a poll. But hey, I got screwed out of this deal too. I gave Graham Platner $6. I can't get it back, apparently. See, that shows how invested I really was in this race. It's really, I didn't care that much about this race to an extent. Again, my guy is Abdullah Saeed. If he was the one that was canceled, that'd be sad. And it's another thing I should be pointing out. That's. I guess let's just move on to the main. Let's move on to the main topic of this episode, because this is just gonna get into main. This is gonna just drive into that. Okay, so as we've just talked about, Graham Platner got canceled because he raped someone, and a subsection of my audience is probably very disappointed about that. There's also another subsection of you guys saying, "What took you guys so long?" And I think I've pretty much done my phalangating. The one where you whip yourself. I think I've done enough of that for this. But if not, I'll just say it again. I'm sorry that I gave Graham Platner any semblance of, praise. I saw use in Graham Platner for that specific moment, in that specific representative of that moment. But clearly, that was a misjudgment on my part. And hopefully, we will do a better job of allowing ourselves the ability to better vet people, or better, just be better. Hopefully, this is just an opportunity that we can all learn to be better. It's ultimately one of the big things that I want to, do right here and now. I don't want it to just be, this is, a thing where it's oh, fuck Graham Platner, or, whatever, fuck Graham Platner's bad, gross, whatever, or, haha, you guys fell for Graham Platner. I don't want it to be a drama of that. Let's use this time to try and reflect on one of the main perspectives that both sides agree upon, allegedly, but they clearly see different angles of this. And, obviously, for the sake of this topic, we are going to be using Graham Platner as a driving force for this discussion about the somewhat larger topic. And, hopefully, this will revolve around the concept of hero worship and the role that political figures should play versus what they do play. And it's a sentiment that I've held for a bit, and I would argue a lot of us claim to hold it as well, but clearly it's also very much easier said than done. Hero worship is a term that I don't really think needs definition per se. I mean, we know what a hero is, and we know what worship is. And hero worship is a common trend everywhere. I mean, a vast majority of the world is religious. So we clearly have a lot of people who do hero worship of religious figures. A lot of celebrities have borderline cult statuses, which can also be seen as a form of hero worship. And the political sphere, we have the aspect of, like, we have the well-known idea of a cult of personality, where people in a political context are given, like, are held to such a massive standard, they're basically seen as, like, a religious leader or a cult leader. And why does, like, the reason why all this happens is unclear. But it's just a fact that a lot of humans want to worship something. It's so inundated in our mindset that there's a historical theory that history is largely driven by great men that we dub so significant that they will be remembered in the history books forever, which very much reinforces this mentality for future generations that we have dubbed some men in the past as so important to history that they'll be remembered forever. And as such, we should also be on the lookout for men like that in the current day and age that will do this. Like, I mean, some people will try to either create themselves to be that man, or they will, like, give that figurehead status to someone else, which again leads to more hero worship. Like, I mean, I think a lot of that really does, I mean, the Elon Musk worship among people, I think that really, really, really is, like, a full in and out, like, type, like, it's like, literally, I've seen, like, people, like, literally said, like, Elon Musk is, like, the most important man in the history of the world. It's just like, really? But again, it's because that mentality is just so ingrained in our mindset that hero worship is just so common. Like, and politics is just an easy way for, like, come on. Politics is very, very important to our lives. And so that leads to a large sense of admiration for various political figures. It's like almost natural. Like, these people, like whether it be a political figure, political theorist, a political, like, politician, leader, whatever, they, like, represent ideas, movements, philosophies that can be near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. And as such, people, again, will gravitate to it. It's like, again, it's like a religious mindset to an extent. Like, I mean, a lot of people, like, you know, some people like to do the thing where it's like, oh, like, people on the political spectrum or, like, whatever, like, they're, like, I don't know, like, whatever, like, the people who are on a political ideology that you don't like, that they are just, like, you know, cult worshippers of this specific ideology. But it's like, everybody does it. That's just the truth. The truth is, everybody does it. It's not a left versus right issue. It is just a human issue. Humans on all sides of the political spectrum can have that mindset of, like, just worshiping a figurehead of an ideology so much that they're fully inundated in your lifestyle and your choices. Of course, the political right has it, you know, like, I mean, we can assume that the political right has a lot more of this, like, it's more common on that side, but, like, we can all assume that, but we all know how, we all know the saying about assuming. It makes an ass out of you and Ming, and Ming does not appreciate what your assumptions do to his reputation. Because leftists are just as guilty of this as right-wingers are. And I don't mean Democrats with the K-hive. I mean, like, clearly I don't, but I mean, come on. One of the most stereotypical images of a leftist in the modern day is a college kid wearing a Che Guevara shirt. Arguably one of the most infamous cult of personalities in politics aside from Hitler is, of course, Joseph Stalin. And we know, like, I mean, a lot of leftist figures do have cult of personalities, whether they be naturally created by the people around them, or they be, like, I mean, that's one of the main difference between the right and the left when it comes to, like, cults of personality is that usually, for the most part, people on the right, when they make cults, cult of personality in the political context kind of seems to be more representative of, like, like when the figurehead on top forces this cult of personality onto the people. But that does happen on the left side of the aisle as well. Like, Che Guevara has a cult of personality. That's a fact. Hugo Chavez has a cult of personality. That's a fact. Joseph Stalin has a cult of personality. That's a fact. And as far as I'm aware, Joseph Stalin's the only one who intentionally made his cult of personality. Although I could be wrong on that. But like, even though Che Guevara explicitly did not want a cult of personality, he got one anyways. And Hugo Chavez, whether or not he intentionally wanted one or not, it doesn't matter. There is a cult of personality around Hugo Chavez, to the point where there is literally a version of the Lord's Prayer that says, in Chavez's name we pray. It's a cult of personality so inundated into the, Venezuelan people's mindset that, like, one of the main political symbols of current Venezuelan politics is the watchful eyes of Hugo Chavez. Nicolas Maduro literally holds, like, meetings and, like, stuff where he, like, he did before he got arrested, but he held, like, press conferences where he said, like, he had dreams of, birds landing on his hand, and those birds were Chavez's spirit. And it's something that kind of persists to this day, whether it be something as small as labeling yourself as one of the named ideologies in leftist circles. I don't want to say that calling yourself a named ideology is inherently like hero worship. Obviously, I'm not saying that calling yourself a Marxist means that you are hero worshiping Karl Marx. It can mean that, but I'm not saying that it automatically means that. But we can't, guys, can we at least acknowledge that to a point it does get to that? There are some ideologies that are definitely definitely that. We can't pretend that's not true. When you get to like super specific niche ideologies of a person, and it's kind of like, okay, at that point, yeah, it kind of is a cult of personality. And a troubling phrase that I've been seeing a lot lately is the phrase Marx/Lenin were right about everything. I know they probably mean it in a hyperbolic sense, but that's just a very slightly strange mentality to have. Just saying just imagine replace Marx or Lenin with someone like Bernie Sanders or AOC and say they were right about everything. Doesn't that sound weird? And contrast that with some of the people who are in this camp usually saying something like, there's people who criticize someone who is too charitable to people like AOC or Bernie as, them being hero worshipping them, or in a more recent case, obviously, Graham Platner. There's just elements of that we're definitely seeing where some of this can happen, where hero worship is going on. And I'm going to specifically hyper-focus on the Graham Platner drama specifically, because this is what I've seen with the Graham Platner drama that, as a person who, again, I took in every single Graham Platner became the voice of a lot of left-wing circles for everything. Some people saw, almost everybody saw Graham Platner as a litmus test to their specific section of the online left. And from as an unbiased perspective as I can get, there have basically been 4 main camps in the Graham Platner, opinions on Graham Platner. There were 4 main groups, and I will use one online leftist personality to represent the entirety of the group. There's those who were super duper ooper pro Platner, such as Ryan Grimm. There were those who were moderately pro Platner, like Hassan Piker. Now that might immediately cause some people to pause, but when I say moderately pro Platner, I mean that he was pro Platner, and I'm not saying that he wasn't at least enthusiastic about Platner's candidacy. I'm saying in the context of, again, Ryan Grimm versus Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker was definitely not as, we'll get to that in a bit. But there's clearly a difference between how Ryan Grimm supported Graham Platner and how Hassan Piker supported Graham Platner. There were those who were moderately anti-Platner, like FD Signifier. And then lastly, there was the super duper ooper anti-Platner people. Obviously, no better exemplified than with Ban Empanada. Now, these 4 might specifically not necessarily like my characterization of them, but that's just the fact. The fact of the matter is, of those 4, that's just how they broadly fit in the spectrum. And what's especially important about all of these groups is, much like every single group within BreadTube, they all hated each other immensely. With them hating each other so immensely that they would, saying they all hate, okay. I'm trying to say them all hating each other, but I'm thinking Hassan does not really hate FD Signifier. FD Signifier does not really hate Hassan. Hassan does not really, as far as I'm aware, doesn't hate Ryan Grimm. We all obviously know who's the one who's both leading the charge in the hate and also the most receiving of the hate, with it sometimes getting to a point where it's like, definitely, I mean, this is the big thing that was really interesting to me. It was like, Bad Banana implying that FD Signifier was either as pro-Platner as Ryan Grimm or Hassan Piker, or just flat, like one of the big things that was just like, he just flat implied, like, you know, FD Signifier was super pro-Platner. It's just like, he's not. I mean, dude, I saw FD Signifier's video before I saw yours. He's not pro-Platner. He was, like, very critical of Platner. And again, like, I mean, it's contrasting it because I'm acknowledging that him, FD Signifier, and Bad Banana, they were not on the same camp. FD Signifier was at least willing to acknowledge that there was some slight benefits of Platner winning the election as opposed to him losing the election. But he was broadly not in the camp of how Platner became like the leading discourse on the left, for various reasons that he states very clearly in his video. Contrast that with obviously Bad Banana being, again, super duper ooper anti-Platner. And again, the thing is, I engaged with all of these people's points because that's just the truth. Like, in order to truly like learn about the issue, you have to listen to all of these points. And the thing is, a lot of these guys made some pretty good points. And by that I mean mostly FD Signifier and Hassan made points, and Bad Banana did make occasional good points. I mean, we can't fault him on everything. Bad Banana did make some good points. You know, again, broadly criticizing Graham Platner's military service. Like, that was again, big one. That is the one critique that's like, you are valid in that critique, and that is fully acceptable in a critique. Like, him just flat out acknowledging that fact of the US military broadly is the thing that allowed me to accept his critique acceptedly. Like, yes, if you're going to critique Graham Platner, you have to go after his military service. You have to. Because if you're acknowledging his military service is good, or was good, or whatever, you have to, I mean, again, unless you're going to go after Graham Platner's military service together, or go after the military as its institution itself, then you don't have any criticisms of Graham Platner, really. Most, if not all, the bad things about Graham Platner can be traced back to his military service. Or, I guess, like, again, like, you know, or you could just, you know, focus on, like, the hyper-militarization of the United States, that kind of stuff. Again, that's, like, the main crux of the critiques, again, which was valid, completely valid. But sometimes his points were sandwiched between points that didn't really make much sense. Like, I mean, on one end, he would say that Graham Platner was using universal social programs as a way to distract people from bad parts of his platform, but then on the other end, also claimed that Platner wanted to put those social services behind the paywall of military service to sheepdog you into military service? Which doesn't make sense. Like, on one end, again, it doesn't make any sense. Is he pro-universal social services, or is he pro hiding them behind the paywall of military service? That was again, like, that was where the criticism started to fall flat. But again, besides the point. Like, again, he wasn't entirely wrong. That's the big thing. He wasn't entirely wrong. The only one who really did not make good points in this scenario was Ryan Grimm, because his points became Graham Platner smears were anti-white racism, and also right now is fighting tooth and nail to try and offer quote-unquote context to Graham Platner breaking into a woman's house and raping her, claiming that there was like some mixed signals that she sent him that he might have interpreted as a go-ahead, and claiming that Politico is trying to like bury this information, and like, oh, they're trying to smear Troy Jackson as well, and it's just like, bro, shut up. Like, Ryan, just do the world a favor and just shut the fuck up, please. Like, shut up. I didn't like you before. I didn't like you before. I listened to, I watched the drop site, like, fucking, like, pages, because, you know, that's actual journalism, but, like, I didn't care about Ryan Grimm as a personality, because he's not a personality to me at all. But after this, you're especially not an internet personality to me no more, because it's just like, bro, again, there is no context you can give to her texting Graham Platner, do not come over to my house, and then him breaking into her house and raping her. Like, I mean, like, Grimm is fucking insane, really, because he literally made a fucking, like, he made, like, a it's just so... I didn't want to give it away too quickly, but I watched the Vosh segment. I just wanted to like see the Vosh reaction to the Graham Platner situation, because I know, like, I'm pretty sure he was, because his group Progressive Victory like endorsed Platner, so I wanted to see his reaction to this situation, because again, you know, you gotta interact with all the opinions on this matter just to get everyone's perspective. And Vosh literally made a straw man where he was like arguing with his chatters who were defending Platner, and so like, you can't make a utilitarian argument about like, well, yeah, he breaks into women's houses and rapes them, but at least he's better than Collins. But then Ryan Grimm just unironically makes that point. Like, I mean, it's literally borderline like Michael Jackson levels of like fucking like, because again, I put notes here about like how Michael Jackson, it was like, I mean, I put notes in here about like Michael Jackson, because I mean, I talked about him in the last podcast where I talked about how like people like do the thing where it's like, you know, they're like, oh, the media is trying to smear Michael Jackson because he was pro-Palestine. It's like, no, he could be pro-Palestine and also be a child molester. You know that can happen, right? Like, people who are on your side can be bad people. You know this, right? Like, this happens all the time. Like, there are tons of male feminists that get caught, like, raping women. That's a common thing that happens. That's an incredibly common thing that happens. Some people use fighting for a good cause to hide being a shitty person. That's just a fact of the matter. But these four not only serve as emblematic on this issue in regards to their stance on the Platner situation, but also they serve emblematic on this because of themselves being part of the problem. Because, you know, especially Hassan Piker and Bad Empanada having diehard fan bases that will literally follow them to the ends of the earth. Similar to how apparently there are Platner dead-enders like Ryan Grimm, and there's apparently like a state representative who's literally a Platner dead-ender. But there are people who are like the Hassan Twitter people and like, I guess the Bad Empanada fans. I mean, I'm sure that there are a couple of you guys in both of these camps that are in this thread right now. I'm not, maybe not you, but you know, there has to be some people in those fan bases that are definitely not good, to the point where these people in these like communities can't, like, the people who are in charge of these communities can lie about something and their fan base will believe them despite the information being clearly laid out to them that they're wrong. Like, Bad Empanada talking about like FD Signifier and like the Zionism controversy that happened, where it's like he said that FD Signifier was a Zionist, and like, despite the fact that on FD Signifier's show, like on Noah Samson's show, Noah Samson had FD Signifier on his show, and FD Signifier like showed him the full receipts about him not being like a Zionist or a Jewish supremacist or whatever, and having Noah Samson bring in Bad Empanada and explicitly say, yo, dude, we clearly just saw the thing that you said was wrong. It doesn't matter. Bad Empanada fans are still going to call him IDF Signifier and imply that he's a Jewish supremacist or something, and think that FD Signifier, you know, quote unquote, walking back on his position is a epic win. But yeah, it gets worse, especially as, you know, again, the person is, you know, especially when they become popular, you know, again, like Hassan, whew, like, I mean, one of the big criticisms that a lot of people have with like people like Hassan Piker, Destiny, and Vosh and other people in that sphere is like they turned politics into a fandom, and that's true. That is true to an extent. They did like, and that's just the thing. Fandom culture is fucked. We all know this. I mentioned again last week people who are Michael Jackson's dead enders who did that. I mentioned it a little bit ago about Michael Jackson's dead enders. I'm a fan of the Amazing Digital Circus. Their fandom is absolute cancer. I was a fan of, I mean, basically a ton of fandoms that I was in or am in. Star Wars, Steven Universe, all those shows have fucking like cancerous fandoms. Fandom culture is fucked up already. Add a political context to it, and it's terrible. It is infinitely worse. When you make a thing that is important and make it like important to a cause, that makes it worse. Steven Universe is a good example of that. Steven Universe, just being a show, was already destined to have very cringe fan bases. But making it a show that was very important for the representation of the LGBTQ community added way more like hands to the pot that made things worse. You know, you had tons of biphobia against the show with a bisexual creator. And again, in this sphere specifically, it gets worse because we are on the YouTube and like the Twitch sphere where we live on platforms that do rely heavily on instant gratification on both sides of this thing. The fans need to have instant gratification for their thing, for their support for the creator, and the creator needs to have instant gratification for their support from the fan base. And I don't know if Bad Banana came up with this term specifically or not, but he actually has a really great, I saw a video of his where he gave a pretty good example of like just I just like the phrase, parasocialism, where, we have like the merging of parasocial relationships with the term of socialist quote unquote activism. In the past, that term could obviously be used to describe like, historic admiration of leaders and theorists to an unhealthy degree, but now it extends to podcasters because we have a lack of public intellectuals in the modern day. So most, if not all creators, most, if not all people on the online sphere get their news and commentary from podcasters. And like the creator has to cater to their fans, and in return the fans follow the creator. I can't speak too much about Hassan's fan base directly because I don't know much about Hassan's fan base, but I guess it just kind of bothers me in general to see politics get watered down from actual political labels to like Hassan Twitter or DGGers or VGGers. It's not inherently bad, and there's elements of it that can be good. Like, Hassan Piker specifically has done a decent bit with the platform that he's been given. He's raised money for some good causes. He's given platforms to certain candidates. He's been able to do some good things with the platform that he's been given. But again, that's the thing. Him using his platform to do good things is fine. Is fine. But there's also, again, it's like, is this fan base or is this, actual activism, I guess? Like, again, I want to bring up this example because, again, this is from the Bad Banana video that I saw where it's like when you're an adult person with a Hassan Piker tattoo, can we really trust you to hold Hassan Piker to any levels of scrutiny that really can be done? Like, one thing I've also been seeing a lot is, like, from people who are in Hassan's circle and, like, some fan base members of Hassan, they tell, like, oh, Hassan Piker should run for office. Like, there's, like, this one meme I keep seeing where it's like Hassan says, like, someone should run for office or whatever, and then, like, literally all the memes are about, like, Hassan Piker running for office. It's like, why? Why should Hassan Piker run for office? Why? Why him specifically? Like, why is Hassan Piker specifically good enough to run for office? I made jokes in the past where I'm just like, at this point, just have Hassan Piker and Nick Fuentes run against each other in the 2020 election so we can just get it over with. But that's just me being doomer and just being like, yeah, that our fucking politics is doomed. But why should Hassan Piker specifically run for office? What about Hassan Piker specifically tells you that Hassan Piker would do a good job legislating, bringing attention to the issues, or whatever? What specifically? Same thing with like other people. Cenk Uygur, when he ran for office, what about him was good enough for him to run for office? Clearly not much because he lost. But my point is, like, it's just again, this is you wanting to make the fandom bigger. This is you wanting to make the this larger. You guys want to make the fandom larger. You want to make the fandom like more impactful. And when you're at the point where it's like, again, you are all wanting Hassan Piker to run for office of the United States, can we really trust you to hold Hassan Piker to any sort of scrutiny beyond whatever? It's something like symbiotic relationship. Like, creators have this symbiotic relationship where they become fully like parasocial relationships with like other creators. Like Xanderhal and Vosh became like parasocial like leeches off of each other for a long period of time, and now that parasocial relationship has kind of like, they've broken apart for many reasons. Yeah, Xanderhal became a Biden dead ender, I think. That was fucking weird. But like, they become like basically like fucking like, it's, and that's the thing. Like when Xanderhal was like a leech off of Vosh, he didn't say a fucking peep about him. He was loving every second of it. Then the second he got big enough to become like not part of the leech, all of a sudden, that's when he started talking shit about Vosh. Same thing with Vosh and Destiny. When Vosh was a leech off Destiny, he didn't say a fucking peep. Then, when he became big enough to not be a leech no more, that's when they started having their little hissy fits. And I'm sure the feeling is mutual. They're not going to say any bad things about their leeches until that becomes a problem and they can fully divulge and go away from them. Which leads to more problems. For a lot of reasons, it becomes a bit more problematic. Like, me doing this is kind of ironic, considering what the thesis of the video I'm about to mention is, but I recommend watching JT Chapman's video, Beware the Opinion Dispenser, where he goes over, like, just the fact that a lot of viewers online get their opinions from the people they follow, and not forming their own opinion. Like, I mean, if a person watches Vosh says his opinion on this situation, and then the people in his audience are parrots. They will say, cheap, 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 whatever. They'll say what he says. Same thing with Hassan fans. Hassan says something, they follow. Banana, they follow. I mean, I'm sure that there's obviously some, I'm sure that there's at least some fandoms where there would be more of a diverse opinion than thought, but that's just the fact that it's just more likely that a person in a fandom is going to regurgitate the opinions of the person on top. We've seen this in the past with other things, like where a internet reviewer in the past, I mean, if you don't know the internet reviewers trend where it was like, the Snatch Critic, AVGN, all the whatever, they can literally change entire perspectives on specific forms of media just by making one video. Like, people can literally never watch a piece of media, but then they'll watch a review of it made by whoever, and then that person's opinion will be parroted by hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people. And that's a thing that you all really should think about when you engage with online media. When you have an opinion on something, did you come up with it, or did you hear this opinion from someone else? Now, again, it's not inherently bad to listen to other people's perspectives and come to your own conclusion because of all these informations. Like, you watch this person's review of a movie, and then you watch this other person's review of the same movie, and then you watch this person's review, and then you engage in all of the criticisms, engage with the media yourself, and then go, here's my opinion on this thing. Same thing with a political context. This person says this thing about Graham Platner. This person says this thing about Graham Platner. This person says this thing about Graham Platner. And then they all say different things about Graham Platner. And then you can come to your own conclusion about Graham Platner. It's not inherently bad, but it's a problem when you just parrot what someone else says. And I can't even fault you, because sometimes I do it. I know I've done it. I've done it before, and hopefully I won't do it in the future. I've done my best to try and do things that I will try to avoid doing it in the future. And one of the things I have done is like just this. Like, I mean, I've mentioned a ton of left tubers that I've talked about in this video. Hassan, Banana, Every Signifier, JT Chapman. I've mentioned a ton of them. One of the big things, difference between all these people that I've talked about. They all share one common thing. You want to know what it is? I'm not subscribed to any of them. None of them. I do not consider myself a fan of any of these creators, and yet I still engage with their perspectives to keep myself informed on the various opinions and allow myself to form my own opinions removed from their undue influence from being a fan of them. Like, the second that you are subbed, I mean, I'm not saying, especially not saying it to people who are subbed to me, but like, when you are subbed to a creator, sometimes it can lead to, again, a parasocial relationship. And sometimes that leads to, again, undue influence. And I guess in the past, I am guilty of doing that. So I'm now doing the best in my ability to remove myself from having these sort of parasocial relationships. I mean, I've been in online political fandoms in the past. Jimmy Dore was at one point my guy, and then he started being cringe. And for a while, I used to be a Vosh fan, even as I had disagreements with him in regards to strategy, ideology, and how he did his content. But I still, unfortunately, put him on the pedestal. And while I wouldn't say I was as much as a VGGer as other people, I don't even necessarily think I was a VGGer. I think I was, technically, because of the fucking, Vosh website or whatever. Regardless, but I still had rose-colored goggles that came from a reflexive perception of an attack on him as an attack on you. And it wasn't really until after I really unsubbed from him that I was really able to engage with many of the valid critiques levied towards him. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I still sometimes check him out just to see his perspective. Again, engage with the arguments. I'm at the borderline point where I want to unsub from basically all left tubers. I basically only sub to one left tuber right now. I'm not really even gonna say who it is, just because. But I'm only subscribed to one left tuber right now, and even then, it's only because I just want to keep they don't upload as frequently, and I just want to keep them specifically in my feed. But again, I want to try my best to keep like the politics and fandom separate. I mean, I've even just casually mellowed out in regards to like the fandom phase in general, because I definitely don't engage in like the fandom culture as much anymore. But that's just, I guess a general phase of growing up and like, seeing toxic fandoms get worse and worse. But let's get back to politicians, as that was the original impetus. Admiring a politician, again, is good. There are some politicians that have done a lot of good things, and we owe them some praise for it. Bernie Sanders helped pave the way for most of the leftist wave that has been happening over the past 10 years. And we have to give him props for that. But does that mean we blindly follow Bernie Sanders until he dies? No. It doesn't mean we don't critique him either. Bernie's done plenty of things to criticize him for. He has a historical blind spot on foreign policy. While he's been pretty good on supporting Palestine recently, there was definitely a lot of growing pains to get there. He voted to confirm Marco Rubio. There's, again, a lot of valid things to criticize him for. Evo Morales was a pretty good leader until he started being stupid and fucking children. AOC voted for the Iron Dome funding. We all deserve and reserve the rights to call out a politician or a political leader when they fuck up. Nobody's ever disputing that fact. It's just clear that there's a little bit of a different barrier on how some of these people go. Like, for example, some look at AOC voting for the Iron Dome once and then don't see merit for any of her other pro-Palestinian stances because they see that one thing as a bridge too far, as she needs to go further. Meanwhile, I can still see some merit for AOC being there in Congress, even if it's merely just the fact that her being there is significantly better than any of the previous positions the US has ever been in, even if, again, it does not necessarily need to be as far as it should be. Like, many of you don't remember that the progressive firebrand star in the early 2000s was Anthony Weiner, who called the Palestinian delegations to the UN terrorists and demanded that they should go home in their quote-unquote terrorist bags. Now, would you rather have that be the most left-wing position that you can have in Congress in regards to Palestine, or would you rather have this position where AOC is? In fact, she's not even the most left-wing politician on Palestine. I mean, we got Rashida Tlaib, and pretty soon we're about to have Daria Liza. I see merit in the sense that it provides some short-term benefits, but also obviously, some long-term ones for broader ideological perspectives. That was one of the main things that did have me go like, okay, if Platner is like the lowest form that we have now, if that is like the least position we have, then imagine what more can be done if Platner is considered this year's, I guess, left wing, but clearly should have been more due diligent in specifically him. And the thing is, beyond that, you just need to understand that. Beyond that, that's what these guys are. These figures truly mean basically little to me beyond them representing these ideas and these issues. Like Platner specifically. Like, I mean, I heard about him last year, and then next year, I'm going to move on, and I'm never going to acknowledge him again. He's just going to be completely gone from my mind period once he's gone. Like, that's basically, like, I mean, if you don't know, I mean, there's been a ton of politicians that I've quote unquote endorsed and supported and like looked at and said, hey, these guys are pretty cool. They lose, they're out of my mind. Like, they're just gone. Like, well, you lost. Good luck. Try again next time. Maybe I'll see you again next time. If not, then goodbye. Because again, these guys are just tools to get elected, do the job, and then leave. They mean nothing. And I also don't want them to stay around for 2 million years, because it's ultimately going to lead to more problems. If AOC stays in office until she's like 85, that's going to be a problem when she doesn't have the ability to leave or whatever. Not even necessarily, you know what I mean. I don't want a Dianne Feinstein situation. And again, that's another part. It's like, hero worship isn't even purely just, the realm of supporting bad people. That's, of course, one thing. But sometimes, even if the person is good or based, that's just it's not a good thing to, like, obsessively worship them beyond anything else. Like, Lula. I like Lula. Lula da Silva is based, and I like President Lula. Lula should not be running for president this year. He is, and I'm supporting his bid, but he shouldn't be. He really shouldn't be. If I had it my way, we would be having a new presidential candidate in Brazil. But, like, the fact that he is running for president is not letting the Brazilian left move beyond him. I see the benefit of him running in this short term. Like, this short term, we will get a W if Lula runs and wins. But again, Lula is 80 years, like in his 80s, he's 80 years old. He can't run again. And he should have been using this time building up a person to run in his stead, which he was doing. But again, he should have been working harder to do that. The hero worship in regards to Lula did lead to problems. Like, the Brazilian left's obsession with Lula led to him, he had 2 terms, good. Then Dilma Rousseff basically rode the Lula train. And then when she was not as popular as Lula, then Lula had to be dragged back in. But then, since the hero worship was so much for Lula, when he wasn't even going to be allowed to be the presidential candidate, then they lost massively. And now they need him to be the torchbearer. That's a problem. Again, the Brazilian left needs to fight a way to move on beyond him. And this is the thing, like, that can again be well and good, just that thing. But in another semblance, like, what if the person you do this for is just a shitty person? Again, like Evo Morales. Evo Morales literally fucked over the Bolivian left in the electoral sphere because he refused to let go of power. That's what he did. That's a fact. That is an actual fact of the situation. He refused to let go of power, and due to that fact, he just really fucked them over on that sphere. Thankfully, Evo at least helped build the outside left of Bolivia enough so that they could at least still manage to maintain control in some aspect, even without an electoral left, because otherwise they would be completely fucked. But let's close this out with just a little bit of a factoid. Let's just remember specifically what every single one of these people are. Politicians, theorists, philosophers, activists, journalists, and left-tubers. All of those people are all tools. Not in the insult sense, not necessarily, but in the literal sense. Politicians are tools for expressing the ideas and putting them into practice. Theorists and philosophers are purely there to teach about these ideas. Activists are meant to rile up the movement and be the first voice against, the government corruption or whatever. Journalists are meant to report the truths against the capitalist media. Left-tubers are, specifically, their job is to be basically megaphones for leftist ideas and help educate people. Nothing more. Again, nothing more. There can be some possibilities in overlapping the duties. Journalists can be also left-tubers, but also in the general aspect of, some of their ideas can be shared. Again, journalists, left-tubers, philosophers, all these people have the same job of educating people on leftist ideas. But again, that's it. These guys mean nothing more. They can be dropped at a moment's notice, and you do not need to engage with them beyond that. Take it from me. As much as I'd love for all of you to become parasocially obsessed with me and give me your money so that I can live a decent lifestyle of $30,000 a month, I'd love that. I'd love that. But, it's not a good idea. No, you shouldn't do that. You should give me money, but you shouldn't become parasocially obsessed with me. You should, but you shouldn't. Again, I'd love it for you all to do that, but again, you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. I don't know if, the specific type of content that I make kind of helps try to stop that specifically. No face and a generic name on the YouTube channel means you're less likely to get attached. You're here to engage about my ideas and the videos that I make and nothing more. And thankfully, it seems like you guys do a pretty good job on that because I don't get a lot of comments on the videos anyway, so, I guess that's fair. You guys do a good job. You guys do a good job. You guys get brownie points for that. Leftist politicians are elected to do a job. If you don't like it, find someone to replace them, preferably after doing some thorough vetting. And while I'm here, I guess I'll close it out with this and just say this. Your favorite left tuber is not running for president, and they should never do so. Anyways, that's pretty much all I gotta say on that. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click that bell to notify that future video when it comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.